Ron Kinsley,
Here.
Mark Helwig, Ed Peters,
Here.
Chris Rusk,
Here.
Brian Bissonette.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is pledge allegiance. There'll be a flag on the screen. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
I'm gonna roll right over there.
Number 4, certification compliance with open meeting laws.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Number 5, the agenda. The agenda is set. Number 6 is public comments. Does anybody care to address the committee? Yes.
Linda Zilmer, Village of Birchwood resident, Edgewater property owner. I have 3 items related to the Highway Commissioner's update and items I have emailed to committee members. One is maybe an explanation during the Highway Commissioner's report of the 2-year pilot project for LRIP for towns. I understand 2 counties have acted to go along with that, even though their highway commissioners will be doing most of the support to towns. And 2 counties have denied that. And so I don't know where that sits right now. I talked with the Washburn County Highway Committee chair earlier today, and he believes that that's still going forward. So I think that's important to keep an eye on. The second thing is I emailed you all the letter that Washburn County wrote for requested legislation due to the increased request of having ATV and UTV road routes opened. And Barron County Board of Supervisors acted in support of the Washburn County letter, and I would hope that you would also. Then finally, I noticed that for tonight's meeting, there are some applications for driveway permits. Back in the day, because I think it was Mr. Sarnicki was maybe the supervisor at the time, there were rules in place and he helped me write rules for the town of Edgewater driveway ordinance and application. And as I understood it in simple layman's term, where the driveway meets the highway, there has to be a level area, one, it not sloping towards the highway so that water and things do not run onto the highway. And then also an area so that you're not coming sharply up onto the highway. And just within the last month, there have been 2 driveways paved on Highway F in Edgewater. One is cement and one is blacktop. And I question whether they meet the standards that driveways need to have. And is that happening because people don't know they need to apply? So if the Highway Commissioner can look at those. And finally, with regard to the public hearing, I believe you'll probably be going ahead and adopting that resolution and signing all those forms for the airport improvement. But I would ask that you add a project and to have an environmental impact study of the airport operations on the Nemacolin River as a project if it's an eligible one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak to the committee? Is there anybody? Well. No, thank you. Number 7, consider approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of June 7th. Is there any questions or concerns?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Russ, second by Mr. Peters to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 8, maintenance department report. Mr. Tim Hagberg has presented a report for us to review. Is there any questions or concerns about that? We'll move on to number 9, Sawyer County Airport. Mr. Leslie.
Good evening. I apologize. My report was tardy. It was sitting in my drafts I didn't realize it until this morning. And when I looked at the agenda and seen it wasn't attached. Any questions on my report?
Why don't you hit the highlights, please?
It's been a good month out at the airport. Our traffic volumes are up quite a bit. We've had a lot more airplanes of all types in this year in comparison to last year. Probably don't do as good a job as I should tracking the airplanes in and out each month and each year. Easiest way for me to do it is just by fuel sales. Since we're not there monitoring things 24/7, but the frequency of planes coming in and out has certainly increased. And it's not just our community, it's the surrounding communities as well. Seems like aviation's been very strong this year. EAA Oshkosh is next week. It's the biggest aviation gathering on the planet. And they're expecting record turnouts for that too. Usually that's a pretty good indicator as to where the aviation industry is going, is just by what the attendance at EAA is. I think they usually have 300,000 people go to that event within a week's time annually. So we pull some traffic that goes in and out. Typically just Canadians that were clearing borders, I Falls. We've hosted 3 different types of events at the airport in the last month. We had Young Eagles, the latter part of June. The Civil Air Patrol hosted their pancake feed. Mr. Kinsley and also Stacy Hessel came to the pancake feed, so I appreciate you guys coming out. They had a really good turnout. This is the first time they've ever done it the week before 4th of July, the Sunday before. Last couple times they've done it, they've had poorer turnouts than what they had expected. So doing it the Sunday before, nobody actually counted this year. But we estimate between 300 and 400 people were fed.
Good.
So they should have funding for the next year. I think they've got 8 cadets in the program.
How often do they go out fly or the training?
Um,
Once a month?
Well, they meet every Monday night.
Or-
The local auxiliary unit here in Hayward doesn't have their own aircraft. So 2 of the members, the squadron commander, I believe, has an aircraft. They do some work with those airplanes, but then when the kids do most of their flight training or flight things associated with airplanes, CAP flies down from Superior, or I think there's one in Eagle River as well as part of their program.
Okay.
And then just last night, since I was late getting my report in, I just updated it so I don't have to have it on the report for next month. We hosted another meeting at the airport last night. It was down in the FBO hangar. It was the local EAA chapter out of Rice Lake. They met at the airport. I think we've got 5, 6 hangar owners that are members, as well as some members of the community as well. And then preceding that, we had a FAA FSDO agent give a seminar on safe landings, and I believe there was 30 some people present. Coops catered the event, so we had sandwiches. That was fun. And yeah, I'd say ultimately everything at the airport's going pretty good.
And something that's not on your report, but when we put up the fence not too long ago, we worked with the DNR a lot, so we made sure we met all their standards and the fence was put up. And also, prior to putting up the fence, every time we receive federal money, we lock in that we have to either pay that money back if we decide to move the airport somewhere, or it stays where it's at, and that's why it's where it's at.
When we update our master plan, right now we're in the process of doing kind of our forecasting. We're looking at specifically, of all the manners that we can. There's a lot of ways technology has allowed for us to track flights in and out, the types of aircraft. Forecasting is where we're at right now, and it's an extensive process. We're going back years in the making to figure out what category airplanes are using the airport, what months of the year the airport's getting used. And that's the phase we're in right now. airports have moved before in the past. Rice Lake is a prime example. In '96, they moved to airport in Rice Lake. I think that's the last one that's actually happened in the state of Wisconsin was in '96. If you know where that Blaine's Fleet Farm is in Rice Lake, it was in that field back there. There's actually a couple old hangars still standing back there if you ever drive around towards the park. But that was the last airport that got moved, and they didn't have any. There wasn't a lot of airport there in the first place, anyways. The federal grants and assurances are signed for 20 years. So every time you take funding, you sign the grants and assurances, you have to keep the airport running for 20 years. In the last 20 years, I don't know, I don't think it's outrageous to say that there's over $20 million worth of investments into the airport. Really none of which came at a cost of over 5% to Sawyer County over the course of 20 years. In reference to like the fence project, a lot of the other bigger projects, whenever there is environmental impacts, we've had numerous environmental impact studies done, environmental assessments over the years. Any future expansion that has anything to do with wetlands is going to be required to have an in-depth environmental assessment.
Other questions for him? When's the
He answered mine.
when's the master plan committee meeting again? Do you have a date?
Well, our it's not an ad hoc committee. It's just it's a technical advisory committee. It was required to help essentially the engineers build up the plan. There's 12 or 15 of us that are on that. None of us are voting members. We all just kind of have a voice we bring to the table. In the master plan, we're going to have 2 meetings, just with our panel essentially that's been chosen. Andy's on it, Mark Helwig from committee, several property owners in Sawyer County, business owners, members from the chamber are involved as well. We're going to have one more meeting in this fall that's just for the members of the committee. And then towards the end of the year, we'll have hopefully our first public involvement meeting. And that's going to be in the papers, probably in this room, where we're going to bring everything that, we've built so far, what the airport currently is, what we're considering for the future. That's going to be presented to the public, for public input. There's not going to be any, voting or any decisions made during that time period. We're going to do that 2 times as part of the master plan. So there's going to be, over the course of about a year, there will be 2 separate public involvement meetings. And then eventually, as we start to button up the master plan, it'll end up getting brought here to Public Works first. Presumably, if there's members of the public or if there's people who are opposed to portions of what we've built as the master plan, it'll be on the agenda for everyone's review before the public meeting, and it'll get brought to committee for you guys to read every line. It's going to be a big plan, and wrap your head around and look at what we've decided on what's best for the airport moving forward, and then it's going to be up to this committee whether it's moved forward to the Board of Supervisors for their consideration, the full board. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for the public to be involved before anything gets published or approved by the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You got something else for us?
No.
Letter B, resolution petition airport aid, discussion and possible action. Andy, you want to hit on anything?
Yes, this is the actionable item, the resolution for petitioning the Secretary of Transportation in Wisconsin for airport improvement aid. We had the public hearing prior to this meeting to allow for public comment related to the airport and the project list. Apparently, this is like a process thing that you go through this every couple of years to update your petition with the state. It's a very formulatic type of, maybe I just made that word up. It's prescribed. This is what you do with the state. You come up with the project list. you have the public hearing, you pass the resolution with the board, to the board, and then that goes to the state, and the list of items is eligible to receive, or eligible, you're able to use your entitlement dollars to these projects. And so all the projects that are listed in the resolution are ones that were part of the prior petition and have expired this year, and they have to be updated every 5 years. And so we're updating the list so that down the road in the next 5 years, we can use entitlement dollars for these things. So some of these are, and some of these I'm just repeating what I said at the public hearing, are state programs like the seal coating and the airfield markings. When we need to do those things and it's determined that it's necessary, the state, hires a contractor to come in and assess our runways. They grade them just like you grade a county road. And when we get to a certain level where the markings are faded or need seal coating, the state will put us in the pool to be bid out with other airports to one contractor. Cost is assessed to our airport, and they use the entitlement dollars that were allocated from the state to pay for those things. Other things are items that we anticipate we'll need, like snow removal equipment. We do our own snow removal, or we actually contract and do some of our own, but we can use entitlement dollars for the equipment. We've been in need of a snow blower attachment for the unloader to replace the current one, because we've had quite a few breakdowns and downtime. So that means when that happens, we have to hire a contractor to come in and remove it. This year, we had to ask the city of Hayward to come out and borrow their equipment for one snowfall because we were in such dire straits. And I should say credit to them, they stepped up to help us out. But if we can get a better snow blower, that reduces our cost for snow removal. Some other things in the list: purchase the brush hog, rehabilitate the terminal, develop hangar sites, or items that have been anticipated at the airport but are currently not priorities, because outside of the snow removal equipment, our current priorities are the master plan, which Derek talked about, and then the runway rehabilitation of our main runway. That pavement is aging out, and so we're in the process, kind of the timeline to get that redone, which will eat up all of our entitlement dollars that we have saved and into the future for a number of years, because it's not just going to be, it's part design, it's part doing the actual runway replacement or rehabilitating the surface, and at that same time probably updating all the airport lighting as well, as long as you're going to have the runway tore up. So this resolution would need to be approved to send to the board for approval. It's like the golden rule. If we want the gold, this is the resolution we pass, which includes the federal block grant owner assurances as well, that we sign off on every time we use this federal money. And we've already, I guess, a couple comments to that effect already.
Thank you. Yes.
So when you relocate the fuel system, can we ensure that we get you a big enough tank, get you the road bands?
We've got a few different things, as we're looking at the master plan too, whether it's expansion at the airport or just using the site that we currently have. There's alternative fuels in the aviation industry that are coming soon. We're maxed out on current hangar space at the airport. There's no availability. That being said, if we move some stuff around, we might be able to get more of a public facility brought in, with this current land that we have without having to expand it all. That doesn't help, said prospective individuals who own airplanes who want to move to this area and have their own hangar. But I could already tell you several years ago, the FBO purchased one of the larger hangars in the field, and we've actually brought in numerous members to the community that have never been here before, just because there's safe storage for their airplane. That was a big step. So looking at that in the future, from a financial standpoint, when Sawyer County is looking at trying to fund the airport, Sawyer County also gets a revenue share from those activities as well. We spent a lot of time working on that. And I think obviously from comments we've heard tonight here too, it's obviously in the community's mind as well. So, that's just one option. The only way that something like that would happen is we'd have to pitch a proposal or request. We'd have, to the state, this is what we want to do. And We'd have to get approval from the Board of Supervisors. It'd have to be in a capital program, which I don't think it is right now. But next year or the year after, this petition is good for 5 years. So 5 years down the road, we could be having very different discussions than we are now.
A motion to approve. To send over to the county board. Right?
Yes. There's a motion by Mr. Russ, second by Mr. Peters to approve the petition and pass it on to the full county board. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 10, Highway Commissioners Report. Welcome, John.
Good evening. The culvert crew has been working hard replacing culverts on County W south of Winter in preparation for upcoming pavement project. The 5-mile section from Price County line to the Flambeau River Bridge will be paved by the county in early August. As of tomorrow, we will have all 16 culverts replaced and ready for cap. County KK, we put the 45-mile-an-hour reduced speed limit signs have been installed. We're still waiting for the farm signs. They're on order. As soon as those arrive, we'll get those out there and installed. We have finished performing our massive patching on Highway 63 through Hayward. The crew has also finished up what we had left of our mastic work on bridge approaches throughout the county on Monday. Mowing operations started June 26th. We had 2 mowers on Highway 70 and 2 mowers on County W in Winter. We're moving our way through the southern portion of the county, and we'll just continue mowing operations. We've been having a little trouble with breakdowns on our mowers. We got one on rental, which has been good, and we got a newer one. We got 2 older ones that we've been kind of pushing along. County Road S update. So obviously, we all know we've received multiple complaints on the north section of this road. Brad and myself, we do have a plan for a temporary fix to keep the section road operational while we secure funding for a permanent fix. So we went out yesterday and marked all the bad sections of County Road S and put a bid together, pretty much an estimate of what it would cost us to fix the bad sections of the road. And right now, we're just using what we have left of our cold mix, and we'll still have to get some hot mix. We're looking at about $172,000 just to patch, and that's not, and then we're going to have the bad sections in between. So I also put an estimate together of doing a light overlay, 2 3/4 overlay for the 3.14 miles to do that, and I'm right at $392 to do that. My only concern is if we kind of piecemeal it together, it's going to be harder to, I think, to get funding. We're hoping that this small overlay would last 8 to 10 years. It's a lower ADT road. I looked tonight again, it was like 75. Even if we pulverize it and turn it into gravel, we're still going to get complaints. And to maintain it for the next how many years till we can secure funding. So I'm kind of stuck at this point right now. We'd like to start on this next week.
I'm assuming some of the board has received calls. I know I've gotten a couple, John's forwarded me a couple, and nobody likes to hear this answer, but really it's like a return on investment type of, when we went and did the road tour with John and Brad this spring, we looked at sections of W, which were in rough shape as well. They really went down over the winter. They already had sections of County E in the plan for this year, and then D. When you look at the ADT, the traffic on those roads is significantly higher than County S. And so where is your money best spent on the lower, where's the condition of the road versus the amount of traffic on it? And County S will never score well to get other funding. It's just, there's very few addresses on that section of road. There's very low traffic count. So we debated a little bit, just you turn it to gravel, and if you actually look into that further, if you wanted to make just a gravel road, it's not, your best bet isn't to tear up the road that's there, it's to gravel over what is
To
there.
gravel over it.
Yeah, and that's not a cheap proposition either, but it does reduce your long-term maintenance.
Right, and just to actually gravel that, we'd have to haul 4 inches. We kind of put a rough estimate together, just because we can only haul from Hayward because we don't have a pit any closer to get gravel. And we were at between 250 and 300,000 just in trucking and buying of the gravel, and then maintain it until we could secure funding.
What was the distance, the mileage? How long is that?
3.145.
And you can, if you had no blacktop, you can blacktop right now for 174 miles.
Correct. This would be doing, with a 4-inch overlay.
Yeah.
Yeah. This would be doing a 2 3/4 inch overlay for the 3.14.
So I don't know if we need to have it. Yes, go ahead.
Didn't we discuss returning that section to the forest at one time or to the forest?
I don't recall that, but
That would have been like a year ago maybe or something, but it seems like we discussed.
Yeah, if I recall, I don't know if you discussed it. I know Gary put that in my ear. Was because he's applied for funding, federal forest funding, and it's been denied. But yeah, that's really that section road is primarily forest.
They got the kind of funding to fix it, blacktop like the other roads, county
Right.
roads.
So we're bringing it up for a little more discussion. And we're, it's part policy because I'm sure you don't like getting phone calls, or if you haven't gotten them, you might get them in the future. But if you're the person that lives up there and that's a very important route for you to get from home to work or whatever, you don't want to hear that it's a low priority but that's really where we're at. So that's our response to the board when you want to know why nothing's being done, is because there's higher priority areas with higher traffic counts. That's a better investment for the county to make.
Well, they can blacktop the last gravel road, that's county roads, was Highway M. And that's been 25 years ago.
Well, it's going on 20 years ago now, 2005.
So I really don't want to go back to gravel.
And the original blacktop was where it's sitting at 29 years right now on that section of County Road S.
Okay.
So I mean, if we did do something, we could probably get more than 10 years out of it with the lower ADT.
Is a major problem up there what the substrate is?
Yes. I mean,
The base is just not there.
You can't drive in the same lane the whole way there. I mean, you're like this. It's gotten a lot worse since we took our road tour.
I think all this dry weather would have helped.
But I mean, if we just patch those sections, I mean, it's still going to cost us a significant amount of money, and the sections in between are just going to fall apart.
I would rather see an overlay over the top. I would rather see an overlay over the top.
And I might be a little high on my estimate, but I wanted to make sure.
And at the same time, where we're gonna get the money.
Right, that's what John and I have talked about. I mean, he's doing his best to save the maintenance budget, so maybe there is a little room, but that's on this hand. The other hand is we're all out of winter maintenance money. And we still have the rest of the year to get through, so he's trying to balance that out as well, so we stay within budget overall.
So with our winter maintenance, one storm, and we'll be at our budget for winter maintenance this year.
Yeah.
And then looking at our road construction budget versus our general maintenance budget, which we're a little behind in our general maintenance budget right now. We got a little extra money there. Our county highway budget, our 1.6, we have some leeway there with E, and plus we'll be getting a reimbursement of $200,000 for county W2. So we'd be really close to our budget if we did the full overlay.
Well, I believe you have to work that out with administration.
Yep. Well, that's what I guess, giving you all the information because that's what we're going to work it out. And I think the thing that John hasn't mentioned, in addition to money, it's time. Because right now we're already struggling to get we'll work overtime to clean up the winter storm from last year. Just John and Brad are going to hop in machines now on Fridays to help us out. But even if we added in another project, it's, there might be a question of getting it done this year too.
And how many hands are you short to presently?
Short one right now.
And how many people did we get summer help for running the brushers?
Yes, we're full on our summer help. Correct.
Good.
Is there a possibility of thinking of this as a 2-year project. And that is putting gravel on it this year and then paving the following year?
Well, the problem is if we do that, I mean, we'd have to go and replace, I mean, there's a lot of ditch work that needs to be done too. So, I mean, we're looking, I mean, just off the top of my head, if to do this 3.14 miles would be well over $1 million
No.
to do that if we did it correctly. I mean, this might buy us 10, maybe a little more than 10, 15 years.
I think overlays your answer. It's a matter of coming up with the money.
So I think no solutions tonight, but we've informed you where we're at.
Yep, thank you. Any questions for John? Anything else you want to add?
Brad and I had our operational planning meeting for the County C Bridge last week with Ayers and WisDOT on June 28th. The anticipated start date's going to be July of 2024, and there'll be a public involvement meeting in Coudray here in the near future. Sounds like everything's on schedule to go. We do have some issues that we're going to have to, that the county's going to have to help out with the mud turtles and stuff, and long story there, but we'll get through it. There's still a vacancy for a driver operator position, the Hayward shop. We're still continuing to advertise for that position. We did conduct an interview on July 11th for the Radisson shop, and that driver has accepted our position. So we're full staff there. I just want to bring this to your attention that we have been informed by WisDOT that red flashing lights above the stop signs on all the county roads that connect state roads had to be removed.
What was the reason for that, man?
So I talked to them and I went back and forth with them. They want all counties uniform was their response. And it's their sign, it's part of their right of way. So we had to remove all the red stopping, as you probably saw in winter and out on K and E.
I thought it was a good thing for safety.
I thought it was too. So I did fight the issue. Again, like Andy said, our Wisconsin Disaster Fund, we got it extended to January 1st of 2024. Again, we've been making progress, but working every Friday. We've worked, I think, the last 7 Fridays now, and it's going to continue. So
Let us
that
know if you have to
completes-
take the administrator and get him in the machine.
he's going to drive truck for us.
I have to talk to the insurance company if they really want that.
Go ahead, John. Thank you.
And that completes my report.
Actually, you want to,
Yep, I was going to touch on Linda's comment here. The LRIP administration agreement between the WCHA and the counties. I would like to sign that tomorrow. So I talked to Mike Coles, which was the admin of the LRIP project. All the counties in District 3, which is going to be our district, there's 12 counties in District 3. All counties have signed except for 2, and we're one of them. It sounds like the other one is Mike's going to be working with them, and they're probably going to sign. The deadline is Monday the 17th. It doesn't affect, the only thing it affects on our county is our admin fees, which I'm sure you're all aware that we spend way more money, administrating this program than what we get out of it. Nothing will change in our funding, our entitlement money, our supplementary discretionary money. It's just so all the towns will have control of their own LRIP projects. Right now, it's kind of a mess. I've done a few, and there's a couple towns that are still having issues with it because it wasn't gone through the commissioner like it was supposed to. So this agreement, and it can be voided at any time. Also, if one county doesn't sign in our district, the pilot program will not go. District 1 is all signed, and it's going to go. So.
Okay.
And then also the ATV support letter, again, that came out from Washburn County. They're not going to have another meeting until this fall. It's something we can look at in the future if we want to get on the agenda and talk about it.
Okay.
So that is all I have.
Thank you. We'll let her be driveway permit fees.
maybe I'll start. So this is something John brought to us in looking at what they do at the highway department. This is something they've been doing, is issuing permits for driveways and utilities. Probably a pretty loose process up to this point. They go out, do the work. We have not been assessing a fee, but we do invest a considerable amount of time in processing these and approving them. And in other counties, there is generally an application and fee process in place. So with that though, and looking at it a little further, I guess I would just say I thought this was great that he brought this in. And I did talk to council about it because it started making me think that if we're going to issue a permit and cost a fee, do we have the authority to do so? And so we do not have anything in our county ordinances relating to driveway permits or utility permits. And so we could pass this by resolution, but we'd have no way to enforce it without an ordinance. And so my recommendation of council is that we work, if this is something we want to move ahead with, that we do it as a package deal. We'll go back and put an ordinance together, bring back to the committee, and then the fee, the ordinance, the application all can go through at one time. We can get that done within a couple months. But we need to have some authority to, issue the permit. And then also that gives us the authority, if we need to rescind the permit. If we're gonna go through that process, we need to have an ordinance to do that.
John had talked to me also about the same thing, and I think if the other counties are doing it, why aren't we doing it? So it's generate some more revenue.
Yeah, it's not going to change the work that they'd have to do to complete these.
Anything else you want to add?
Right, because we do spend a lot of time. We go out, and look at these, give them the permit, then we have to go back out and make sure it was installed correctly. Same with utility permits, that everything was done correctly, our shoulders aren't tore up. And that's just, I guess, holding everybody accountable to make sure this is done correctly. I mean, we have an issue down on F right now where they had bored across our road and humped our road. So with this being in effect, it would maybe eliminate some of those issues. People take more time.
Sure.
So
there's no action to be taken, but do we want them to move forward with it as just a gentleman's agreement so they know whether they need to move forward or not? I do too. Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Bissonnette?
I will go along with whatever John's recommendation is.
Okay, thank you. All right, so do we need it on the agenda next month then?
Yes.
And if it takes a month or two, so be it. That's what we'll do. We'll move forward with it. Thank you. Any other questions for John? Thanks for being here, John. Number 11, discussion with LCO regarding the road ban procedure.
Yes, we approved last month initiating a conversation with LCO regarding the road ban. And I was to draft up some correspondence to communicate with LCO. I drug my feet because I figured we might as well wait to see who the chairman would be. So we've got that. I gave the Mr. Kinsley a draft of the letter tonight, and he says it looks good, and we'll send that out now to Chairman Taylor.
Thank you. But anybody have any questions regarding that? You know what we're talking about? Number 12, courtroom remodel update. Andy, please.
Sure. We're now in the home stretch. We're meeting weekly. The turnover date is still August 14th, when we expect to have the courtroom be able to be used, which is good because if you got your invites and email, the new judge will be officially sworn in on August 11th. Everything is, timelines are lining up. It's been it is getting a lot of coordination between our vendors for furniture and IT, AV, as well as getting the building wrapped up. Some of those people will be here July 31st. Some will be here the following 2 weeks. But at this point, everything's on schedule. There's been no major issues with the new construction or the remodeling in the new building. This morning when we met, the first delivery of the millwork came in for was the jury box. But then the next thing is to come in over the next few weeks will be the judge's bench and court reporter's station and all that type of stuff. You can see the temporary wall was torn down between the two buildings, and they were painting that wall today. So everything is seems to be coming together. Outside, since the last meeting, the parking lot is now finished, and we're using the Kansas Street entrances and the 5th Street was paved and access into the Sally Port is all taken care of and landscaping on that side. And late this week, early next week will be the other side of the building. We'll finish up curb and gutter, blacktopping and the landscaping on that side of the building. So they're still fine tuning. Things are coming up almost daily as far as sound issues, HVAC. Sometimes the HVAC makes sounds. So they're trying to, there's whistling sounds or things are operating loudly. So they're trying to still tighten that up especially in the sheriff's area of the remodeled area. But trying to think of anything else noteworthy, but I think that's about it for the remodeling.
Questions for him?
But I'll just give a shout out again. We've done this. You'll notice a lot more things showing up that maintenance is building for us. They've done a great job on the benches. You'll see the cabinet out in the hallway they just did. We just went through some things today that they're going to try and do and see if they can build. They're taking it on. I really appreciate that. The good thing about working with them is we kind of know what we're going to get. When you buy this stuff from the furniture, you don't know what you're getting until it comes out of the box. And so that's why we're trying to shift some of that over to maintenance, because just the quality and the color and all those things really seem to work better when we do it in-house.
No, I noticed when I came in the lobby this way, we need some kind of directory out there, perhaps coming.
Yes, I think there's still, when the furniture comes the end of this month, that's the same contractor does the signage. There's more signage coming.
Thank you. Very good. Number 13, future agenda items. So obviously, we're gonna have the airport stuff on there. Commissioner will bring us information. Does anybody else have anything else that's not a routine thing that they want to bring forward? Certainly let Andy, Lynn, or I know, and we'll certainly get it on the agenda. Okay. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.